Hello everyone, welcome to this edition of MeteoMark's Weather. Great to have you here with me today. We're going to be talking first about the tropics. Yes, we're still looking at the possibility we could have something forming either into the Caribbean or the Gulf over the next several days to a couple weeks. So we're going to take a look at all the details. We have something that's popping up, and of course the Eastern Pacific. We're already going to have our first tropical storm of the season. And we're going to turn our attention here to the southern and western Caribbean, where we could be looking at the Atlantic Basin's first tropical storm potentially as we head on into the first and second week of June. And this could potentially cross over into the Gulf. I have complete details on what the chances are we could be looking at a tropical system. And are we finally going to see a drier weather pattern with high pressure along the U.S. East Coast? Or are we going to see more coastal storms and severe weather outbreaks? Let's get into it. So here we go on our GFS run. Let's take a look. Yeah, we're going to have our first tropical system any moment here in the Eastern Pacific, and the intertropical convergence zone bouncing a little bit to the north here through Trinidad, Tobago as we stretch through Thursday night into Friday. Now let's take a look here. We got this frontal boundary moving through parts of Florida, as you can see on the north and central side here, moving towards South Florida. We'll have to watch these frontal boundaries this time of year as they can cause some spin-ups. Now, not so much moisture except for the southeastern Bahamas here towards the Turks and Caicos on June 2nd. So things look pretty benign here initially. Now, look what starts to develop here. Of course, we got this area to the north that looks a little interesting, but watch this area down here across the southern Caribbean. This has been picking up by both the GFS and the European model, but more so on the GFS model, because the GFS really does start to develop this around, here we go, June 4th, and you can see we only have a few showers up here in the Northeast Caribbean islands. Pretty clear here through much of Jamaica, Dominican Republic, Haiti, even towards Cancun by June 5th here. So this is a big change. And I caution you because things can really change significantly based on these forecast model trends. But here we go, June 6th into the 7th. Look at this persistence. Not only do you have this big ball of moisture here with a potential low pressure trying to initialize, but look at all this tropical moisture on the east end. Here's our intertropical convergence zone here southeast of Trinidad, Tobago. Some pretty persistent rains. It looks like we have some sort of hurricane developing here by this point in the Eastern Pacific. But look at this. Through June 8th, there's our low pressure initializing just east of Nicaragua. We still have some sort of disturbance camping out here through the northeastern Caribbean islands as well. So we'll have to watch that area as well. But let's just back up here. There is our area of low pressure. This, by this point, is looking like a tropical storm by June 8th and June 9th, right along the north coast of Honduras, and then it starts to move northwest. You can see, let me just zoom out a bit. I can show you the positioning of this big old Bermuda high. So this is going to dictate quite a bit, as well as any storm action here in the Eastern Pacific. But you can see we have that area of high pressure stretching all the way up into the Gulf. Naturally, this would want to steer it initially into Central America and then eventually towards the Gulf. But here it is on June 10th. We are beyond 300 hours, so I caution you here. This is just one model run, but here we have a landfalling storm here on the Yucatan Peninsula with tremendous moisture feeding on the east side of it. So this would clip not only western Jamaica, but also the Cayman Islands into potentially the Florida Keys as well. But Cancun would get quite inundated with tremendous feeder bands on the east and northeast side of the system. Honduras, Belize as well. And there it is, reemerging here into the Gulf. This looks like a very large circulation here. This is by June 11th. So this is our last frame. You can see it here into the Gulf. This is something we're going to keep a very close watch on. The GFS has been spinning this up. European, I'll show you momentarily. It's not as big. It does try to spin something up, but the GFS is really going crazy with this, so we'll keep a close eye on this. In latest model information, we can go a couple more frames here through June 11th into 12th. I caution you, this is going really far out, but this does show what direction this storm is headed. I do want to make note of the intertropical convergence zone bouncing further to the north here through Trinidad, Tobago, and Grenada here. So a lot of tropical moisture working its way in, and I'll show you that on the European model momentarily as well. But look at this. If this verifies, which is pretty far out, but the GFS is going with a very large circulation on this storm. So this would be large impact for a large area. And you can see steering currents become pretty weak by this point because this high is way over here off the U.S. East Coast. And we got another high right up in this region. So that would start to block it and veer it more towards the southwest. But this far out, it is very imperative not to get into semantics and just the overall pattern of what this thing could actually go and how strong it could actually develop. Let's take a look at the European run. All right, thanks to Tropical Tidbits here for our European model analysis of the tropics from the Caribbean, Gulf, and Western Atlantic. So watch this. As we stretch through Friday, you can see these showers kicking up from Trinidad, Tobago, all the way up the Lesser Antilles chain to the Virgin Islands, and then eventually into parts of Jamaica and into Dominican Republic and Haiti. So we'll watch out here. It's going to start to congeal a little bit quickly here on the European model as opposed to the GFS. So watch the Southern Caribbean here. Look at, you even have some spiraling bands here on the northern end towards Jamaica and Haiti. So we're going to start to get a little area of low pressure cranking here on the European model, and then this frontal boundary stalling across the Bahamas, South Florida here as we stretch through June 1st. So that's some beneficial rain here for South Florida, Central Florida as well, Bahamas. Now look at this. As we stretch through June 2nd here, it does look pretty interesting with this little tropical wave potentially becoming a disturbance. But look at this. Yeah, it looks much more impressive here on the European model. It's consolidating its moisture right around Cuba, parts of the Cayman Islands, Jamaica here, southwestern Bahamas in particular. And then as we stretch through June 3rd into the 4th, you can see this moisture just continues across Central America and then pretty much fizzles out here on the European model as we stretch through June 7th into the 8th. Now, one thing to note on the European model, it does keep things very moist through Honduras here all the way up to Yucatan. So Cancun all the way down to Belize, Honduras, and Nicaragua. Look at the intertropical convergence zone. It does start to bounce north towards Trinidad, Tobago by this time period, June 7th. So watch this. We're going to open up the tropical pipeline, so to speak, through June 9th here. We do get a little bit of a tropical wave moving through parts of the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico. Some more showers, gusty showers here through Trinidad, Tobago. And look at this, showers streaming westward here towards the Yucatan, through Jamaica and the Cayman Islands as we stretch through June 10th into the 11th. So it's interesting. This run of the European has backed off a little bit here on any system entering the Gulf here through this time period. But look at this big tropical wave just on the southeast corner of your screen here. This looks pretty ominous, June 11th. And it bounces towards the Lesser Antilles with a tremendous amount of moisture. So things could be cranking, especially as we head through mid-June. And there is a classic Bermuda high set up here to keep these systems on a west-northwest track. And as we take a look at our sea surface temperature analysis here, look at this. Western Atlantic, especially the Northwest Caribbean into the Gulf, it is bathwater practically. Look at how much warmer. It's practically in some cases 3 to 5 degrees above average here. Now, I want to show you, look at this into the Eastern Caribbean out by the Cape Verde. This is most likely caused by all the dust that's being kicked up. It actually is holding some of those water temperatures down. So that's a trend we'll have to keep an eye on here. All right, so take a look at the GFS here for rainfall totals across the Western Caribbean as we stretch through just the weekend here into early next week. Not too much to talk about here. It's mostly along the eastern coast of Central America here. We'll see those rainfall totals approach 150, close to 200 millimeters here. Lesser amounts through Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, through Dominican Republic, and the Bahamas here, mostly averaging out to 25 to 40 millimeters here. Now watch this. There's that big surge in tropical moisture. This run of the GFS, it's much further south and stronger with a potential tropical storm developing, But as I said, this is pretty far out, so it could be further to the northeast, it could be further to the southwest, it could be in this area. But watch out, because there could be some significant rainfall totals coming out of this, close to 400 millimeters, 700. Look at these areas. Yeah, you're talking about tremendous rainfall totals. We'll see how this gets cranking as we head into the Western Caribbean through that first into that second week of June. Look at these other rainfall totals here through Jamaica. You could be more if the system tracks more towards the north. So I caution you here. Some areas approaching upwards of 60 to 70 millimeters. In the eastern tip towards Portland Parish, upwards of 100 millimeters. Even through parts of central Dominican Republic here, approaching 100 millimeters. So watch out. And looking at just a few more frames here on the GFS, yeah, look at Cancun really gets into it here too. Through the 12th and the 13th, upwards of 300 millimeters, 400 in some areas. Yeah, this could be a pretty significant rainfall producer all the way up to the Gulf Coast. Look at that. So we're going to keep a very close watch on this here. Not to say this is going to happen exactly the way the GFS is unfolding, but it is out there, and we do have to watch this. All right, here on our European run, let's continue to go out here in time. So yeah, as we get into next week, look at Jamaica, the Cayman Islands filling in here. It is curious how the European just eventually loses our potential tropical system here, but initially it does have quite a surge of moisture here, more so in Central America than anything. But here it is through the Cayman Islands, Jamaica. Not as prominent here as on the GFS, I get that, but we have plenty of runs to watch this potential system, so I'll keep you updated here. It is very interesting that we have significant rainfall here, 50 to close to 100 millimeters from the Cayman Islands, Jamaica, even over towards Dominican Republic here. Some areas approaching 60 to 90 millimeters. There it is, eastern tip of Jamaica up to 125 millimeters, and through the Cayman Islands as well. So some of these areas in Central America getting close to 200 millimeters. And here we go. We're taking a look at the Eastern Caribbean here. This is where we're going to be watching some of this. There it is. Action going on with some tropical wave action across the Northeast Caribbean islands here. Starting to break out into these 70 to 100 plus millimeters. Even Trinidad, Tobago down here getting upwards of close to 100 millimeters. So yeah, things are going to start to get more active as we stretch on into that second week of June. And I wanted to show you here into the Eastern Pacific, we are just about having our first tropical storm here any moment. You can see that is going to be a tropical storm, a fairly moderate one, and it'll likely potentially affect parts of the southern Baja here. GFS bringing it closer to the Mexican mainland here. So we'll keep an eye on it here. It's a little interesting. It's been up this early in the season. And do we have anything out in the Western Pacific? Well, not really much to talk about here. Northern Philippines getting hit with a lot of rain. Japan, you got a big area of low pressure up here. Not quite your typhoon season just yet, but we'll watch it here. We have plenty of time to watch this. We can get spin-ups here this time of year in the Western Pacific, so we'll keep an eye on it. Lots of rain here. Almost seems like a monsoon around Taiwan here into the northern Philippines. All right, so starting off here with our future radar, you can see as we stretch across the country, yeah, it's a pretty active right now. So as we head through midnight into heading on into early Thursday morning here, so Wednesday night, Thursday morning, there's a couple areas of concern here. There is into the northeast, you can see those showers and thunderstorms continue. Mostly showers, though, with some bedded heavier showers, maybe a rumble of thunder. That moving up through parts of southern New England, bringing you some very beneficial rain. Look at these storms here across the south, though. Some of these could be very severe. Panhandle, you definitely need the rain here, so this is good news. And look at across parts of Georgia, the Carolinas, southern Appalachians as well. This is going to pivot towards the East Coast. Look at this as we head through 10 p.m. on May 29th, Thursday. Yeah, we're getting some showers and storms from Richmond, Virginia Beach, the Outer Banks, and into much of North and South Carolina. Maybe some storms here into Florida as well. Look at here into the Northeast. So let me just back this up. So there's your rain moving through. Yeah, there is some rain, scattered rain developing across much of the Northeast on Thursday, but it's not going to be an all-day event. That's some good news here. And then we have some storms firing across Texas here and into parts of the upper Mississippi River Valley. So watch out for this. It's going to be a squall line moving to the east. Now, this is that system I'm going to talk about here on the GFS and European model. this is going to get pretty vigorous here. Look at this. We're going to have a squall line moving through parts of the Appalachians here. Kind of cuts off at 2 p.m. on Friday, but watch out. I'm going to be covering this. This is going to be a big squall line. Severe weather potential, damaging wind, large hail potential is definitely there. So if we take a look at severe weather here across western central Texas, that's a slight risk on Thursday, and the rest of the areas here into the darker green, into the marginal risk from the Outer Banks, all the way back through eastern New Mexico and most of the Gulf Coast. And Friday is a big day here for severe weather from the Panhandle of Florida all the way up to parts of the Appalachians into the Carolinas and South Virginia here. So this could be a very bad day for an intense severe weather, damaging wind, large hail, isolated tornado threat. All right, so let's take a look at the GFS model here. We've got starting off with Eastern North America. We're going to be watching these systems kind of propagate across the east. So watch out here. We're starting off with our future radar left off. There is that vigorous system across parts of the Ohio Valley into the Appalachians. We're going to watch out for that through 8 a.m. on Friday morning. This is going to push to the east. It is a bit further to the north than the European model. I'll show you momentarily, but watch out. Some strong thunderstorm action with some very heavy rain here on the northern side of this system. So watch out. Gets cranking into an inland style nor'easter here, almost a coastal low. But look at this, 5 a.m. on Saturday. Yeah, it's going to be bringing some wind and moisture here. 988 millibar low. You know there's going to be a lot of wind with this, but look at that, the isobars. You see this bend in the isobars. You could see some showers and storms kicking up even on the southwest corner of this low as it fills in. And look at that, another area of low pressure trying to form on the southern part of it's also being picked up by the European model. So there you have it, June 1st. You can see things really dry out here until about, here we go, June 2nd. We get a little bit of a disturbance across parts of Virginia, North Carolina, some storms firing around Virginia Beach here. Also some severe weather starting to ensue here across the plains. But once we move this area of low pressure out, we do start to get a little area of high pressure building in. And some evidence we'll start to see maybe this ring of fire pattern kick in here. So we'll keep an eye on it here as we head through June 4th into June 5th. Some of these mesoscale convective systems may try to develop on the north side of this. It's kind of stretching here because this run of the GFS isn't so strong on this high pressure system. But look at this. We do start to get more of a strong high pressure system building in, although we still have a disturbance sitting off the coast of North Carolina here. This is kind of puzzling. But here it is. Potential mesoscale convective systems moving through parts of Ohio, through Kentucky here. So we may have our big vigorous weather pattern kicking up on the north side of this big Bermuda high, which by this point is all the way over here, eastern Bermuda. And then we have an area of high pressure building in right around June 9th into the 10th here. You can see it's kicking up these areas of impulses across the lake. So then we start to get this classic ring of fire. And look at down here. There's that big area of tropical concern. So June could be starting off pretty interesting here. All right, so here's the European run. Let's see if we can get this thing going. There we go. So watch this. As we're picking up where our future radar left off. The European model's a little bit further south with our vigorous area of low pressure, keeping most of Ohio out of this potential for some strong to severe storms. Well, look at that. It enters parts of Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina. We could have some strong storms here along the coast as well as we head on into Friday evening. Now, look at this area of low pressure. It is further south and east on the European than it is on the GFS as well. It's more of a coastal low on the European model, which helps it strengthen a little bit faster here. And you can see we're going to see those areas of rain developing through Saturday here, unfortunately. 987 millibar low. Yeah, we'll take a look at the wind field with this system. This could get pretty interesting, but look at this. We actually have some area of convection. There is like one of these inverted troughs on the back side of this. So we'll have to watch for some convection on the southwest side of this system as we head on Saturday afternoon into Saturday evening. And then that pivots to the northeast. Another low pressure. Look at that. Extending from that trough, trying to develop around the Gulf of Maine here. So that's pretty interesting. And then watch this. Here is that high pressure building, and there you can see the tropical moisture from our tropical wave, tropical disturbance here that we'll have to watch out for. So definitely keeping an eye on that as we go out here in time. But the big story is going to be this big eastern high. We're going to start moving these systems up and over this big ridge. Now watch this. Look at this. Exception here, this is pretty interesting that we actually have some tropical moisture stuck off the outer banks here on Wednesday, June 4th, kind of popping up on this area of high pressure. A little curious, little area of low pressure, very shallow though. Now, look at this. The European does make a system run for it. Here's in that little disturbed area. So we kind of lose our high pressure here on our European run, and we get a squall line moving through parts of Ohio, eastern Michigan. That moves through on Friday the 6th, and look at that. High pressure building in behind this. So we do get some dry periods here on the European model. It's not as prevalent as it is on the GFS, though, unfortunately. So here we go. High pressure off the coast. And look at this. I just want to show you this on June 9th. There is the high pressure way out here by Bermuda. This is quite a ring of fire. Look at these storms firing from the Gulf Coast all the way up into the Ohio Valley, eastern Great Lakes, and interior Northeast. So that would be something to definitely watch. But the European is much stormier and much further east with this high pressure system and much further south with this ring of fire. So we'll keep an eye on it here. And let's take a look at our precipitation mounts here on our European run. You can see what's going on here across the east. So we're going to see that surge of moisture from the Ohio Valley into the Northeast and East Coast, Outer Banks, all the way up to New England here this weekend. And then into, let's just stop it here early next week. Look at this. Yeah, so some areas 2 to 3 inches here from Delmarva, Eastern Virginia, North Carolina, all the way up into New England here. Now watch this as we stretch on into next week, into the second week of June. Yeah, look at the surge of moisture from East Texas all the way up here into parts of the Ohio Valley, East Coast. Lots of moisture. South Florida, maybe the Panhandle. We got a little bit of a hole in precipitation here into Florida. Hopefully we can get you more rain than just 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch. And here we go. We're going to take a look at the GFS here. You can see as we propagate this into motion, you can see, look at that. Along the East Coast, this run of the GFS, a little bit less on rainfall amounts, about 1.5 inches, close to 2 inches, especially here into the red zones. Gulf Coast getting some beneficial rains as well. And South Florida, look at this. Next week, really picking up some heavier rainfall totals there, closer to 4 or 5 inches in some areas. The big story is going to be this area, this tropical area across this parts of the Caribbean. And we'll see if it enters the Gulf at all here. But look at this. Lots of tropical moisture through the plains, the Tennessee River Valley here. A lot of surge of moisture continuing. And before we continue with more weather coverage here, don't forget, if you haven't subscribed yet to my channel, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe bell notification down below. Also, hit that like button if you made it this far and you like this video. It really does help. Question or comment down below. I love to read your questions or comments. And don't forget, if you haven't caught my Hurricane 2025 outlook for the entire season of what I think is going to happen, my predictions, link in the description down below, and also a link at the end of this video. So be sure to check that out if you haven't already. Let's continue with more weather. So let's take a look at our upper air pattern here. There is that big trough developing across the east this weekend, just in time for the weekend. I know it. I know how that works, unfortunately. Sunday, it does try to lift out a little bit, so we'll try to eke out at least half of a sunny weekend, dry weekend. But look at next week. Big ridge building across the east. I do have to warn you, this is the GFS, so it is the more optimistic model than the European one, showing more troughiness. But there it is. Lots of ridging across the east. So we'll keep an eye. Look at that, all the way up to Greenland. But you do have to be ominous of this, because once you start getting blocking up here, oh, we can get some really nasty cutoff lows that just spin for days and even weeks across the East Coast. So far on the GFS, we're really showing a lot of ridging across eastern North America. We'll see if this holds true. Here we go. I just wanted to compare that with the European for you. There's the weekend system, the big trough. So there's the ridging. There it is. Cutoff low. June 5th, East Coast. This is what I was afraid of. So the European is catching on to more storminess. You know, these big, fast systems moving through. Look at this, and showing a lot of blocking up here in Greenland. Now, there is some ridging. This is June 12th, so there is some hope here, even on the European model. All right, so your MJO index here, it is interesting. We're right around, let's get rid of that. We're right around that phase. You can see right around the phase 4 or 5 region. But I expect us to slowly head towards 6, 7, maybe 8 as we stretch into the middle part of June. So that may get things more active. And an NAO index here, it looks like it's staying right around the neutral phase, maybe slightly positive as we head into the second week of June. All right, so your Canadian, oh, wow, Canada. The only bad weather to start out here is on the west coast. Look at that. Pacific system blasting in with mountain snow, valley rain. Then you do start to get these showers here into parts of Ontario and Quebec, New Brunswick. Look at this. It's like a bunch of low pressures here pinwheeling around each other. So yeah, and then we have a big coastal here come the weekend. So Quebec, parts of extreme southeastern Ontario here through New Brunswick, all the way up into the Canadian Maritimes. This low will be blasting. Now, British Columbia, you do start to dry out, but it's very short-lived. Look what happens, another area of low pressure. And then watch out, because we have a plains low here that could enter from the United States. This could bring up some strong to severe thunderstorms into southern Manitoba, extreme southeastern Saskatchewan, and western Ontario. So watch out. This is going to be a gusty area of low pressure spinning up here, bringing some beneficial rain. That's good news here. British Columbia as well. Look at the clearing here into southeast Canada. Looking beautiful here, but look at this. Yeah, this is going to drag a very sharp cold front here to the east, so watch out. This is through June 5th into the 6th, a big low pressure affecting Newfoundland here, and then look at this. Severe weather potential here once again throughout the central prairies here. And then moving up towards Manitoba, big low pressure with cold front moving through Ontario, strong to severe storms moving through. So watch out that gusty storms, high pressure building in behind it here. And look at this. It stays very active here, especially in the prairie provinces here of the plains. Very, very stormy. These big area of low pressures winding up. And out ahead of it, that's where you got to watch out for those gusty winds and some potential for severe weather. So here on our GFS, let's take a look at precipitation amounts. Of course, West Coast, British Columbia getting hit with over 100 to 200 millimeters here of liquid equivalent. But we're going to start to fill in Southeast Canada, you know, about 40 to 60 millimeters. But it's the central provinces here. Look at this. This is where things get stormy. I was showing you on the storm track. Manitoba, Saskatchewan in particular here, over 100 to 150 millimeters. It is going to be a stormy time of it here. Let's just zoom in. Look at this. Some of these areas getting upwards of 125, 150 millimeters. Southeast Canada as well, getting close to 90 millimeters on average. So all in all, a lot of Canada getting quite a bit of liquid equivalent precipitation. All right, so your temperature outlook here, yeah, it's actually looking a bit better across the east here. Into the northeast, we're still holding on to some upper 60s and lower 70s, but that's good. It's much better than what you've seen the last week or so, and 80s getting all the way up into the Carolinas here, and some temperatures being held down in the plains in the 60s and lower 70s. So we head into Friday, May 30th. Look at this. Yeah, we got some 60s here into the Ohio Valley, west or eastern Great Lakes, but most to the east here into the 70s, and 70s a very popular number as we head into Saturday as well. Look at the heat starting to build. Wow, look at this out west. You're just going to be baking your first extreme heat wave out here into the hundreds, triple digits. Here into the northeast, yeah, you got a frontal boundary moving through, some clouds and rain Saturday, holding down into the 60s. As we head into Sunday, though, look at the heat building in the plains. That heat from west is going to be heading east. Look at here into the northeast, upper 60s once again. But we're going to see a major warming trend here. You can see upper 80s near 90 all the way up to Minnesota here as we head into June 3rd. Look at this heat. We're actually getting into the mid to high 80s here into parts of Ohio. This is going to continue to spread east, upper 70s near 80, and look at this, into the southeast, upper 80s and near 90, and pretty much the whole Gulf Coast is into the lower 90s. Extended forecast from hometown viewers, Binghamton, Scranton, Susquehanna, River Valley, New York, and Pennsylvania. Take a look at this. If we have Thursday, we have scattered showers, maybe a few showers and thunderstorms throughout the afternoon. It's not going to be an all-day event. That's great news up towards the mid-70s. And then Thursday night into Friday, some isolated showers, you know, it's not going to be an all-day event. We may see some breaks of sun as well, mid-70s again. Friday night, the rain and storms do move in as well as Saturday, so yeah, Friday night and Saturday don't look too good, and the temperature held down in the mid-60s on Saturday. But look at this. Sunday into Monday, we're going to see sunny skies breaking out, temperatures warming to the upper 60s into the lower 70s. Plenty more weather to come. Here is a look at my affiliate. Check out these awesome, amazing maps. I am proud to announce that I am now an affiliate with Trilogy Maps. TrilogyMaps.com, bringing you the most digital, customizable maps found nowhere else on the internet. These maps are simply stunning. It's an advanced layering system that makes these maps great for making forecast maps with ease or any other maps that you would like to display important information on. The resolution on these maps is simply amazing. From the detail of everything here in the States, and you can also create stunning, digital, professional layered maps from also across the entire world. And don't forget, in checkout, the discount code option, use my code, MeteoMark, hit apply, and you will get 20% off your order. So if you want the most professional, customizable, and affordable weather maps found nowhere else on the internet, look no further than TrilogyMaps.com. Link in the description down below along with your discount code. As always, thank you for joining me for this edition of MeteoMark's Weather. Also, don't forget to join me on Facebook at MeteoMark, also Weather Northeastern, also Twitter at Weather Eastern. Don't forget it's MeteoMark.com, and don't forget, if you want to send me a coffee, there is a link, super thanks. You can smash that super thanks button or my PayPal link in the description down below. You can buy me a cup of coffee. Thanks everyone, share that video, subscribe if you haven't, smash that like button.